We're the wellness agents, thriving in a changing world and knowing there's always more to learn is what we're all about. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Karen, and today's topic of discussion is resilience and judgment, because both of those topics have come up in Sarah and my walking time when we walk 3 times a week and we solve the problems of the world. And really, with what's going on in the world at the moment, I think resilience is up there as being like pretty top. And the judgment was more about when are you stating a fact and when are you making a judgment. And that was one of the things that we tried to unpack just with our girl conversation on the beach on our walk. So
I think
Sarah,
it's
yeah, go ahead.
I think it's important to think about resilience, because what I'm observing around me a lot is that there isn't a lot of resilience in people. People are tending to be very reactive at the moment and not so responsive, not taking that time or feeling like they've got the time to pause and come from a place of having thought about something, but it's almost like they're a bit nervy. And, you know, how do we
also,
resilience?
yeah, like also recognizing, oh, that makes me uncomfortable.
Knowing
Need to
yourself.
talk about that. Yeah.
So I think it does come back to knowing yourself. I mean, it's all that, you know, how well do you know yourself, to know the signs when you're starting to sort of see the cracks or notice that, oh, I'm a little bit, you know, snappy or quick to anger. And especially with the heat wave we've been having, that is always something that's going to sort of get the pressure going, I think, for people a bit more. Really,
well, they're not getting the sleep the quality sleep they could be getting, because it's not really even cooling off. Obviously, it is cooling off overnight, but not to that comfortable temperature where you might want to snuggle under it, even a sheet. You're feeling like, I don't want anything on top of me, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And so therefore the quality of sleep goes down. And you know that from when you had young babies, you get a good night's sleep, you can take on the world.
Yes, so important, so important.
Yeah.
Sleep. But yeah, I suppose it's noticing the signs too, isn't it? So that then you can sort of take a step back. Oh, well, what do I need to do to rebalance, and come back to those things that balance and bring you a little bit more centered, a little bit more grounded.
And just that recognition of, oh, that might have been a strong reaction on my part, or or why are they so spiky? What's going on with them? And just giving them some space, because they are being reactive because something has triggered them, and not taking it personally, you know, like just like, okay, they just need some space. I'll back off a bit.
Yeah. And being able to do that. And then that's how this links into judgments, because you could easily make a judgment about someone who's being reactive, you know, and name call. It's a bit like, you know, really being aware of the words that come out of your mouth, isn't it? Because you could suddenly, you know, get into quite an argument or with someone.
Can very quickly escalate.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Whereas it could come back to the morning didn't go right, so therefore they're already a little bit offset, and then another thing goes wrong in their mind, and I'm out of here.
I'm
cancelling today. I'm going back to bed.
And that would be a good thing. It's like knowing, isn't it? Sometimes we need to give ourselves permission. So if we notice, pressure's building, today I just need some downtime, and today it might be good to clear the to-do list and get a book and sit and read, or watch something on TV, or just go and lie in the park or on the grass. It's like knowing when to stop and pause and reset.
Yeah. Because with that judgment thing too, the way that came out in our conversation was, what if it's a fact? It's not a judgment, it just is.
Mm.
Like, jeepers, you're seemingly you're really on edge today. Well, don't you judge me? And you kind of go, well, you're on edge. It's
Yeah.
not a judgment, it's a
Yeah.
fact. And with all the different triggers that are going on, particularly in the last 4 years, I believe in the States, it was really, really, you're either in this camp or you're in that camp. And some people would say, well, that was in Australia too, but it was more, I've got a cousin living over there and she says, no, it's Australia. Yes, you might have your opinions and you might be part of a certain group or whatever, but she said, it is absolutely divisive which
Mm.
camp you're in. And
And I
because
think society does that. And when you think about, for someone to be resilient, I think they need to be in their heart space and not in their head. And we don't get taught how to live compassionately, how to live from a more heart-based perspective. That is not taught. In fact, what is taught is society in our education system and in our media, and the worst thing you could be doing is watching mainstream TV, because all the subliminal messages and even the blatant messages, they set us up to compare. And so when you compare with other
compete.
people, yeah, it's competitive. And then there will be judgments, because you might think, well, the ideal is to be this sort of body weight, this sort of hairstyle, this sort of blah, blah, blah. And then someone hasn't. So then it's like, oh, well, look at them. They're not blah, they're not whatever. You can make it, that sort of sets people up to get into that language of making judgments. Look, they don't fit the norm. They're a bit odd, or they're a bit,
Conforming. Yeah.
yeah. So we are up against what we've been taught, I think, and conditioned and programmed, because we have been set up to compare ourselves with others about what is the norm or what is good or what is bad. They're all judgments anyway. And we haven't
Yeah.
really been encouraged to be individual and unique and honor our own skills for fear of being different. And most people don't want to stand out and be different because of the fear of what other people think, isn't it?
Gonna say brand me. Yeah, yeah. It's and it is pretty intense to stand out, but it is a benefit. Like for me, being the other side of 60, it's like some of the care factor blows in the breeze, but it's like, but then there's times where it's awkward or downright uncomfortable. And to be honest, I avoid those situations now. I would rather go to a social gathering where I'm going to be so stand out different, because I can't keep my mouth shut even if I tried. If someone says something that I feel needs challenging, that's when I become a Karen, and you know, the more modern version of what Karen is about. And I can judge myself too. I can,
I think
that
we do that
judgment can
too.
be, yeah, that really
And that's
tough.
usually harsh. Yeah, that's usually harsh judgment. And that's as per our conditioning too. We don't come from a strong heart, I want to use the word spiritual base, but really it's heart-based living, compassionate living, and we're all capable of that. But we've been sort of programmed to be in this world of the survival of the fittest, and that's never healthy. That isn't really a healthy way of living, because you're always going to be comparing yourself, or you're in this group or you're in that group, and they're all judgments. And I think you can have those sort of moralistic judgments, and then you can have your value judgments, which is where we were going with that conversation about the factual things. If that's in line with your values and you state something, I can't think of an example right now, but
Well, it was a bit like that party I was at where we were talking about what can be a contentious subject, and she came straight back at me because I'm more. There's plenty of people that think the way I do on the subject, but she'll come back and she says, well, I prefer to follow the science. And you go, what sort of a statement is that? Because like Robert Kennedy, who's running for US presidency at the moment. Not that it's been put on mainstream news, but like he's a lawyer that's fought a lot of court battles on environmental issues. And he said he took his wife to court one day, and it was where the opposition had their scientists presenting their facts. And then when they went home, the wife says, well, you've lost. They made so much sense. And he says, no, wait till we do the reply. And then he had his scientists in there presenting their list of facts and opposing the other scientists. So like when you say you follow the science, you're saying nothing, because there'll always be one group of scientists that have this belief system. And when it comes to environmental issues, it's usually involving big business. So the scientists that are backing, no, there's nothing wrong with that coal mine, that gold mine, that, I won't pick on mining as a whole, but like, because they will have their justification that they're going to put in all the safety factors. Oops, it went wrong.
Yeah.
But the scientists still backed it, because
I think that's an interesting example, because there's so many variables with the word science, and I think it's another programming that has been put out there to to sort of sway us in different things.
And so like you just kind of, so what was judgment and what was fact? When that girl says to me, well, I choose to follow the science, and you go, that means nothing.
No.
But if you choose to follow ancient wisdom, like the Ayurvedic wisdom, and in food and diet, and I mean, that's so holistic, isn't it? What that encompasses. And so again, that's a judgment statement from me, but it could be fact as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. It's interesting to start exploring and thinking about, when is it a judgment and when is it, sort of like a value statement that you stand by. Yeah. Because, some people, it's like health, really. Some people, I could look at someone, say, eating a Macca's meal and say, oh, look at that. That's disgusting. Gee, they really don't value their health. Well, that would be a very unfair judgment. But I'm coming from a place of valuing health and knowing that I would never eat what I didn't know was in the product. But I suppose that's where you've got to be careful about how you use your language. So I could have said, oh, that's unfortunate. They could have made a better health choice by picking different food. And then that's not a judgment. It's like thinking about how you word things instead of, sort of like accusing and blaming. And it comes from that survival of the fittest type of thing. Oh, look at that, isn't that disgusting? Well, that's a judgment, but that's an interesting choice of food those people are eating. I wonder what they value.
Well, we watch a bit of YouTube to kill time in between stuff. And I was watching these people that go in and spruik up people's gardens, and they use the high pressure hoses to clean off pathways and moss off bricks and stuff like that. Well, anyway, there was this one backyard that was a complete jungle. And you could look at it and say, those guys are just so lazy. That is years of growth. And then the guy that says, I don't want anyone judging these people, please, because in that house is a husband and wife that is caring for both of their fathers.
Yeah.
Instead of them being in aged care.
Yes.
And there's been any support to come in. And you kind of go, because I love this gardening mob called Flawless Gardening or something like that. But they do free. They go in there and they will do it for disabled or aged or some people obviously have to pay because it is business. But it's like, that was really valuable to hear, because I had started to think, oh, come on, guys, like there was brambles. It was so overgrown. But then you hear that these two beautiful, compassionate people are looking after their dads, and the couple were easily late 60s, early 70s. So that means their dads are probably in their 90s,
Yeah.
keeping him out of the nursing home.
Yeah. Yeah. See, that's a good example. That's such a good example. Yeah.
And I mean, that's resilience
That is.
itself. My
Yeah.
nursing background, I know, being a nurse 24/7, nurses work 3 shifts of 8 hours, or some
Yeah.
10, some
Yeah.
12. But like they go home, they get time off. You're doing home care. You're busy.
Yeah. There's a great a Rumi quote that you might have heard. I marked it in here. It sort of sets the scene for what we're talking about. And he says, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. And it's like
Say that again.
Okay, so he wrote, out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it? Because it's like, let's take all that life stuff away that bogs us down and weighs us down, and we get so caught up in it. And it's not who we are. None of that is who we are, is it? And that's about that building resilience, is coming back to, we're just souls in these meat suits having an experience in this world and trying to do the best we can for most people with the understanding that they have. And people are very quick to judge, to make these judgments without having walked in their shoes. There's another quote or saying about, before you make a judgment, walk 1,000 steps in someone else's shoes. That would be, imagine if you could step into someone else's shoes and have a feel for what they're going through. Probably would change how you saw them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No. Yeah, so I think it's like, and I think also what contributes to this is our modern technology and the smartphones and the quick response. Everybody is like needing to respond at the tip of their tongue. It has to be instant. So there's less processing time and less reflection time before the answer's blurted out or the send button's sent. So it becomes very reactive communication very quickly and very easily misunderstood communication, which then causes
because
all sorts of
carry the emotion.
Yeah.
Or the intent. Like you could be saying it kindly, but it could be read pretty coldly.
Completely differently. Yeah, there's so many different ways, isn't there? And you could read it 10 times and know because you've written it, but someone else sees it from a different perspective or sees it from a more stressed perspective or whatever, and suddenly it means something completely different. So, yeah, I think we have to really be careful about our communication. And I suppose to build resilience, it could start with, there's another saying that a wise teacher once told me, and that was, taste your words before you speak them. Because we often blurt out. And if you actually pause and how's this going to be received? Do I even need to say as many words as I'm about to say? Because most people really want to be heard and very few people feel heard, because when you're talking to someone, they're usually already processing about how they're going to respond, or they'll interrupt you halfway through to tell you about them because it's all about them. That happens a lot. So it's like maybe building resilience could start with really listening. And can you listen with your whole body? Can you listen with your whole body as you're standing in front of someone and notice their body language, notice what's underneath what they're saying, and suddenly you'll get a bigger picture of what they're going through.
Well, it's like in the 4 agreements, the very first agreement is be impeccable with your word. And what they're meaning is like gossip, or certainly your choice of language. But it's like they're likening it to the pen being mightier than the sword, like something you write could cut someone down, or certainly something you say can cut someone down. And you don't need to tell someone, gee, you look tired. They're probably already feeling tired. Now they feel more tired. Or else, like, again, it comes down to some of those again, they might be facts, but it can come across judgmental too, I suppose. But that being impeccable with your word, that's where I've got a lot of growth still.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting concept, but I think it was worth exploring, the judgment statements and where they come from, and, our communication and how we can come from a more heart-based place, perhaps, and check
And
your
it's
resilience
something that
level.
I ask clients to reflect back on after a session. I want you to reflect on what has come up today and sit with it, whether it's uncomfortable or not, to help build that resilience around that person, that scenario, that issue, and then feel the difference if there is one after a session. But I think what you said right at the beginning, Sarah, it's that knowing yourself, isn't it? Knowing when you're going to be, oh, I just reacted then. That was
Comes back to
strong.
knowing yourself, and it comes back to that self-care. And, they're not easy things. They're simple. The things are simple, but they're not easy to do. It's usually the simplest things that we find the hardest to do and make time for. But it's a never-ending journey.
Not prioritize.
Know yourself, get in tune with yourself, and notice the signs, and be kind. Be kind to yourself. That's a nice way to end. Practice being kind to yourself. And what does that look like?
Exactly. Well, I'm going to be kind to myself today. How are you going to be to yourself today, Sarah?
Yeah, kind and compassionate to myself.
Compassion to yourself, yeah. So this was another topic put on by Sarah and myself as part of the Wellness Agents, and remembering that we stand for the fact that thriving in a changing world and that there is always more to learn is definitely what we stand for. We're always learning. Thank you.
See you next time.
Bye.
This content is created for informational purposes only. Always seek the guidance of a qualified health professional with any questions you may have regarding your personal health.